As Jaco arrived on Namek, he was viewed with suspicion but not aggression by the locals, wondering who this stranger was and why he was carrying a Namekian egg. That wasn't too surprising though. Since the drought, Namek had been largely isolated from the rest of the universe. He doubted they even knew what the Galactic Patrol was, and the idea of Namekians on other planets was probably equally far-fetched. But they aren't too scared of him. Namekians can sense energy, and the average Namekian warrior had a power level of 2000, almost 5 times stronger than him. So they would feel confident enough to approach him and ask what he was doing here and who he was. Well, I had a spot of trouble with a wicked Namekian warrior on Earth. He tried to kill me, and a friend of mine. We won, though unfortunately we had to kill him. That probably wasn't a good way to ingratiate himself with these people. Before he died, he spat out this egg. I figured it'd be better to bring it here than let the Namekian inside try to figure things out himself on Earth. A Namekian warrior, you say? A younger Mori would approach. You'd better bring this to Elder Guru. I will show you the way. Mori would take off flying, and Jaco would follow him in his ship, since his rocket boost was still busted from the fight with Piccolo. Sorry, I never asked. Who are you? Jaco. I'm a member of the Galactic Patrol. We fight to protect peace across the galaxy. Mori nodded. Well, you seem honorable. I am Mori. I'm in charge of the village we just came from. I'm taking you to see our planet's leader, Grand Elder Guru. They would reach Guru's place atop a pillar of rock. Mori briefly spoke to the god out front before Jaco was allowed inside, where Mori would explain to Guru who this was and what he was doing here. A Namekian warrior from Earth. That can only mean the Namekian you encountered was the son of Katas. It saddens me to hear he went down a dark path, but if this egg is raised right, I'm sure his reincarnation can grow into a fine Namekian. So this isn't a new Namekian? This is King Piccolo? Was it right to dump that problem on them? Is that what he was calling himself? Well, don't worry. While he may have some of his father's qualities, he is not the same person. Guru would call in Nail before entrusting the egg to him. I will leave the task of raising Piccolo to Nail. He will grow into a true Namekian warrior. As for you, our population is in serious trouble. You delivering this new Namekian unto us is a greater service than you know. There is but one gift I can offer in return. I can unlock your potential, and you will grow several magnitudes stronger. Jaco thought for a moment. Seemed like a good deal, but he'd remember the promise he'd made to Goku, to fight him at the next tournament. Could you hold off on that for a while? Jaco questioned. I have a friend back on Earth. I promised to fight him when he was done training. If I take this, I'll be way too strong for him to have a chance. So once that's taken care of, I'll come back. Guru seemed surprised, but accepted the answer. Of course. The offer is open any time. That ability does sound useful, though. Tell me, would Namek be interested in joining the Galactic Patrol? We establish an outpost here, and aid you in times of crisis. In return, would you be able to do that for our troops? It's not something I do lightly, so not for everyone. But if the Galactic Patrol were to select a handful of men each year to receive this power-up, that would be acceptable. Jaco doesn't have the authority to make a deal himself, but he would report this to the higher-ups, and eventually an outpost would be established on Namek. The Galactic Patrol would provide supplies and help the planet in times of crisis, and in return, the Galactic Patrol's best and brightest would have their potential unlocked by Guru. The organization would also be permitted to use the Dragon Balls, but only if Guru agreed the wish was important. Jaco would spend the next few years just doing his job, though he would practice every now and then. He'd learn to fly, but his rocket boots were still faster, and he could do pretty basic ki blasts, but his blaster was still more effective. Back on Earth, Goku had climbed Korin's tower and had begun his training with Kami, who had restored the Dragon Balls and was happy to train the boy, even if he wasn't totally happy with how the King Piccolo incident had been handled. Everyone had been brought back, but he had reservations. I understand your friend had good intentions, but I do wish he hadn't taken matters into his own hands. At least with Piccolo on Earth, I could monitor him. Of course, Jaco hadn't known about the lifelink or anything, he was just doing his job. But it was still concerning. Another matter that concerned the Guardian was Piccolo's AWOL offspring, Symbol. Most of King Piccolo's spawn had been dealt with, but Symbol had escaped. He hadn't caused trouble as of yet, but him being out there was an issue. Symbol had no idea what to do with himself since the defeat of his father. His only job was to find the Dragon Balls. What was he supposed to do now? If his father had reincarnated, wishing him back to life probably wouldn't work, and he didn't have the power to take over the world by himself. He would take to training, smashing boulders as practice. Why? Mainly because he was worried someone would come after him. He needed to be prepared for that eventually. One night while he was sleeping in the cave he called home, he'd hear movement outside which woke him. Good thing too, as he barely evaded an energy beam from Kami. "I'm afraid I cannot allow you to live, spawn of King Piccolo. Remain still and I will make this painless." Symbol would evade a few more attacks from Kami, who gave chase as Symbol tried to fly away. Eventually he'd return fire, destroying much of the mountainside with a mouth blast, but it didn't seem to deter the Guardian. Kami would appear behind the dragon-like creature before kicking him in the back. "I'm not trying to cause any harm. I just want to live out here by myself. I won't bother anyone." Kami would land just in front of Symbol, considering what he said. "One chance, that's all you get. Cause harm to anyone, and it will be the last thing you ever do." Kami would not speak of this to Goku, although eventually Goku would ask about Symbol, King Piccolo's surviving son. Kami just told him that Symbol wished to keep to himself, training for self-defense in case someone came after him. 3 years would pass without incident, and the next tournament would approach. Before heading to the tournament, however, Goku would approach Symbol trying to talk. He tracked Symbol's energy to the spot where he found the mutated Namekian who seemed to have sensed his presence. "Come to kill me at last?" "No, I wanted to invite you to join the tournament." Symbol seemed genuinely surprised by this. "Why?" "Well, if you really aren't gonna hurt anyone, then I don't see a reason for you to hide out in the woods." "I'm not hiding, I simply don't wish to interact with you humans." Not that he even had that much choice, since they would probably try to kill him if he did. "Well, I'm just saying." "I don't care what you are. I'm not your friend, and I wish to be left alone. There's nowhere I belong on this planet." He didn't really hold a grudge against Goku. His main issue was with Jaco for taking away his father's reincarnation. Symbol had gotten considerably stronger these past years, stronger than his father had been, but not stronger than Piccolo Jr. was in the original. "I think you'd be surprised. Come on, join the tournament. What's the worst that can happen? They let Garen join and you're not so different from him." Symbol let out a long sigh. "If I do this, promise to leave me alone." Goku would nod. Really, he was just itching for someone strong to fight. He just hoped Jaco would show up. Symbol would eventually agree to go with Goku. Kami didn't see the point in entering himself. Symbol wasn't really an issue. When they arrived on the island, they would meet up with the rest of the group, who barely even recognized Goku. Eventually, Jaco would arrive as well, with Tights in tow. Only Tights and Jaco recognized Symbol, but Goku took the both of them to the side, assuring them he wasn't a threat. "Okay, if you're sure." Tights didn't seem too convinced. Jaco kept his promise about entering, handing Tights his gun since he wasn't allowed to use it, and switching off his rocket boots. Everyone shows up to watch, including Grandpa Gohan, though he doesn't want to enter this time. Essentially, Symbol and Jaco take the place of Piccolo and Kami. The preliminaries go as usual, with Mercenary Tao beating Chaozu. The first difference would be Symbol beating Yajirobe, which was admittedly cathartic since the Ronin had eaten Tambourine. For the first 2 matches, Tien Shinhan beats Mercenary Tao, Goku fights Chi-Chi, they get engaged, and now we're at the third match of the quarterfinals, Jaco vs Krillin. Krillin began the fight by firing 2 energy bullets towards Jaco. He'd leap over it, but they would turn to chase him. He couldn't dodge in midair, but he'd do his best to block it. Before the smoke could clear, Krillin would punch Jaco in the face. It hurt a little, but Jaco was far stronger than him. Jaco would then grab his arm, pulling him into an armbar. Krillin grit his teeth, struggling to try and escape his grip. "If you don't give up soon, I'm gonna break your arm." Jaco warned, but Krillin wasn't gonna quit. Using his free arm, he'd fire a ki blast towards the ground and push himself upwards, enabling himself to throw Jaco off of him. See, here's the thing, Jaco is stronger, but he isn't nearly as good at ki attacks or flying. He was trying to keep the fact he knew ki attacks at all under wraps for the time being, to catch someone off guard if need be. Jaco would jump to his feet, this time going on the offensive, dashing forward, punching Krillin twice in the stomach before hitting him with an uppercut, leaving him unconscious for the 10 count. Meaning Jaco moves on to the next round and will fight whoever wins the next match. Yamcha wasn't really sure what to make of Symbol. Who was this guy? Where'd he even come from? He seemed to know Goku, but he didn't seem to like him much. "You ready?" Yamcha assumed a fighting stance. Symbol nodded before attempting to punch Yamcha. He blocked the attack, but was still surprised by how strong he was. Symbol would attempt a few more blows. Yamcha had to jump back to evade a swipe from Symbol's claw, which tore his shirt slightly. Yamcha retaliated by striking him in the stomach with his knee. They'd spar for a short while longer before Symbol took off to the skies, though to his surprise Yamcha followed him, punching him in the face. He would then be knocked back by Symbol's tail, so Yamcha would use the Spirit Ball. Symbol quickly realized he couldn't dodge it, so he destroyed the energy ball with a mouth blast before firing an electric shockwave, shocking Yamcha just long enough for Symbol to fly over and knock him to the ground. Next is Goku vs Tien, which goes as it always does, so now it's Jaco vs Symbol. You're the reason I'm stuck on this planet. You took Father's egg. Symbol wasn't really made for conquest like Piccolo Jr. was. He was made to find Dragon Balls, and if anyone got in his way he was supposed to beat them, but that was it. King Piccolo had been careful not to make any of them too power hungry, that way there was no rebellion. Symbol was a follower, not really a leader. He couldn't make the big decisions himself, at least if Piccolo Jr. was here he'd be able to work for him, but no, he was stuck on this rock feeling completely directionless. He'd clench his fist before going to punch Jaco, who evaded the attack. If you're a galactic patrolman, surely you shouldn't have just left an alien life form on Earth. Where was I supposed to go? What am I supposed to do? He would attempt a few more blows, all of which hit air, cracking the ring under his fist. You could have done anything. Look at Goku, he's not human, he still has a life here. Jaco would grab his fist, flipping him over his shoulder. Admittedly a bit of a comical visual, something so small throwing something so big. Symbol sat up, shaking his head. He wasn't involved in an attempt to take over the world. If I tried to live among people, they'd have hunted me down. Well then, it sounds like you shouldn't have worked for King Piccolo. Jaco would leap over a mouth blast from Symbol. I didn't have a choice. I was created to follow his orders. It's not like I had anyone else. He took off upwards, firing blast after blast at Jaco, who would jump over each one, using the force of one of Symbol's blasts to propel himself upwards, kicking him in the stomach. Then it sounds like I gave you freedom. You should thank me. Jaco's kick knocked Symbol to the ground, with Jaco landing on top of him, so technically he won the battle because Symbol hit the ground first. After being declared the winner, Jaco got off, offering Symbol his hand to help him up. But I suppose you're right, there's nowhere for you on this planet. You want some direction in your life? How about joining the Galaxy Patrol? Symbol would take Jaco's hand. He'd go along with that for now. He didn't really have any interest in joining, but with luck he'd find out where Jaco took Piccolo. I suppose I could give it a shot. It was agreed that they would take about an hour's break before the final match of the tournament, to give both competitors the opportunity to recover. I had a feeling it'd come down to me and you in the final. I can't wait to show you how much stronger I've gotten. Our final match comes down to the returning champion Goku and the mysterious newcomer Jaco. The fight began with Goku rushing Jaco, who evaded a kick from Goku, only to be caught in the stomach by a punch. He'd retaliate with a headbutt, causing Goku to back up. Jaco would follow this up with a punch, which Goku blocked. They'd go back and forth like this for a while. Neither one of them seemed to have the edge. Jaco was still the stronger of the two, but by this point he wasn't much stronger, and Goku was simply a better fighter than he was. Of course, he knew how to fight. As part of his training, he was taught how to fight unarmed, but he was no martial artist, not like Goku. On top of that, Goku was better at ki blasts, as well as flight, so victory wasn't certain even though he was a bit stronger. Goku would fire a blast towards Jaco, which he barely managed to roll out of the way of. Then, Goku assumed a pose he recognized, putting his hands together and charging a blue energy. When Goku fired, Jaco leapt over the attack, but the Kamehameha bent to chase after him, slamming into his back, almost knocking him off the stage. I didn't know you could do that. So, he'd have to try and block the Kamehameha wave. That wasn't really ideal. Still, smart of Goku to force his opponents into such an undesirable position, which meant he couldn't give him the opportunity to use it. Jaco would go on the offensive, landing a few hits on Goku's stomach and one in his face. He was pushing Goku back, but it didn't last long. Goku was just waiting for an opening, and when he found one, he landed a blow on Jaco that knocked the wind out of him. Jaco punched Goku across the face, and both stumbled back. You're as tough as ever, Jaco, and you've really caught up. I'm not sure I can win here. Jaco wasn't counting himself out though, he had a trick or two up his sleeve. Goku would fire a few smaller energy blasts towards Jaco, who ran along the ring to evade them, though he hadn't noticed how close he'd gotten to Goku, who caught him off guard with a kick, almost sending him off the edge of the ring. Which was when Jaco revealed he could fly, saving himself from a ring out. Whoa, I didn't know you could do that. You think I just sit around when I'm not here? Goku would take off as well, and they'd take the fight to the sky. Now, this was because Jaco wasn't very good at them yet, but his ki blasts were more like short-range explosions, so he had to be pretty close to use them. He'd duck under a punch before firing a ki blast point blank, the force of the explosion throwing them both backwards. You've really improved. That really hurt. That was about the only ki attack he could manage, and he probably wouldn't take him off guard with it again. Both were pretty worn out by this point. The next blow would probably decide the winner. They'd rush towards each other, both landing a punch on the other's face, knocking the both of them to the ground. Neither gets up straight away, so the announcer starts the count, but even by the count of 10, neither has gotten up. So it comes down to who can get up first and declare themselves the world champion. Jaco dragged himself to his feet. I'm the world... Ugh. And he fell straight back down. Then Goku would stand up and declare himself the world champion. It was close and it could have gone either way, but this time Goku beat him. After the tournament, Jaco would congratulate him on the win. He was going to leave, but he was convinced to go out for a meal to celebrate. After which he climbed aboard his ship, bringing Symbol with him, but it was a bit of a tight fit, and took off to headquarters. Symbol was kinda going through the motions, but he had agreed to join the Galactic Patrol, if only to eventually find Piccolo. For now though, he'd focus on his training, which he didn't find all that difficult. As for Jaco, he was off to Namek to take Guru up on his offer of unlocking his potential. And that's where we're gonna stop. That's where original Dragon Ball ends and we get into Z. No Piccolo on Earth, so how do things go with Raditz? And how will Symbol do in the Galactic Patrol? Find out next time. Leave a comment and let me know what you think, or just say hello. Maybe subscribe if you want to. Make sure to vote on the 2 polls on my channel, but that's all from me. Have a good day.